Hello, this is Megan, and I prefer to use my real name because I'm not scared to go after people. Well, actually, to be honest with you, I'm not really going after people. I'm just picking off the low-hanging fruit. A lot of people go after Onision, and I'm just here to provide at least some constructive criticism, unless, I find something super funny and I just mock the shit out of them. Well, anyways, pretty much, if I look here, where do I begin? I heard about the the Momocon issue. Let's start with Dear Trans People. I'm bored. I'm gonna be playing the video and stopping it to provide some commentary. Oh, sorry. Sorry, did not mean to not play, but anyways. So apparently this guy is giving us a message called Dear Trans People. So, what he's trying to get at, from what I'm aware, is trans-trender. Now, trans-trender is kind of a derogatory term. It really doesn't indicate that you're actually trans, that you just identify as being trans to the meaning. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean that, you don't identify as trans, but it's derogative in terms of, you believe that you're trans just for the sake of being trans. Now, if I go and check the Urban Dictionary, I'm just going to go ahead and check Urban Dictionary here. Bear with me. Systems processing here. My phone is a potato. I'm sorry. Trans-trender. Let's consult our old friend Google. Trans-trender. Meaning. A trans-trender refers to a person who identifies as transgender because they think it's cool. So, pretty much he's mentioning trans-trenders as being legitimately trans, which in most instances I really don't mind. But the problem is you got so many people saying that you're trans just for the sake of having a label of being trans. I personally know a few transgendered people myself, and they identify legitimately as being male or female. Transgenders normally believe that there's no such thing as binaries in terms of sex, which in most instances I fail to realize how that can even be possible. I mean, in most ambiguous, in most species, despite, in most species, animals either identify as male or female. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule, such as jellyfish or starfish, but even still, you can't, not identify as something. You have to pick, are you male or female? Well, let's go on. I'm bored. I want to hear what Onion Boy says. I don't believe these people are intentionally trying to invalidate people. The thing is, a lot of people who identify as trans are legitimately struggling with trying to identify as a gender that they weren't born with. A lot of these transgender people just merely think that just because you dress up as a boy means that you don't have a gender. These people, who have issues with coming to terms or transitioning into, like, pretty much being trans, these people are legitimately struggling. And I'm not saying that they're invalidating other people's struggles per se, but the problem is, the transgenders are just, invalidating what the actual trans people are trying to do. The actual trans people are trying to do, what they're trying to do is they're trying to transition into a gender that they identify with the most and lead a fairly normal life as the gender that they identify the most. The trenders normally believe that, on our end, that, there's no such thing as sex, therefore there's no such thing as binaries. And most of the time it's for attention. But move along. I kind of find it ironic that Onision is actually trying to legitimize transitioning, given the fact that this guy was obsessively obsessed with the fact that another female YouTuber got a boob job. And if we're talking about altering and stuff, he wears makeup to cover his tomato face. Like, every video, he has a different makeup or a different getup going on. It's like he's trying to hide from what he actually is. But moving right along here. For the sake of simplicity, yes, it's easy to categorize. I personally believe in two sexes. There's either male or female. If you identify as the other, good for you. Go ahead and transition. But don't try and tell me that you don't have a gender. You're either conditioned to be one gender or you're conditioned to be another. Whether it's by birth, by, cultural stuff, by, upbringing, etc. You either are male or female. There is no argument about that, but let's see what he has to say after that. Sorry, you have to bear with me. I'm recovering with bronchitis. So, a community can't point out problematic members. The problem is not a lot of people like the trans community because of all these trenders issues. I mean, to be honest with you, it's just, if I were part of a community, and then a whole bunch of people come in and undermine my own personal struggles with a specific community by saying, oh, well, I'm trans, but, I don't identify as anything. That doesn't make sense. People are literally dropping money, having to degrade themselves to actually pay for transitioning. And these people, like the transgenders, all they do is post on Tumblr being like, oh, I don't identify as anything. My pronouns are them, ze, and zer. Okay. So if the bar is set that low to be trans, why are you going after people who are part of the LGBTQ community? Like, for example, a lot of trans females are going after lesbians because, they're not attracted to pre-op or post-op trans. There's one thing to say on our end, or at least, on the LGBTQ end, or whatever they call it now. Don't judge a group. But you have the transgender community judging another group, the lesbian community, for not wanting to date a trans female. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You're telling one group to not shame a group, but the very same group that you're defending is shaming another group entirely to, get them to sleep with them. Okay, let's move along. Free will isn't an illusion. We all have free will. We decide what we want to do with our lives. We decide what we want to do with our circumstances. Now, granted, we can't always control when we're born with, what we're born with, or when we were born, or how we were born, or what circumstances we're born into. But we always have free will to make decisions and choices that can benefit each other. By telling us we don't inherently have free will, you're just being a dumbass, Onision. I'm sorry. I don't believe if you don't want to go through altering surgeries that could possibly irreversibly damage you, that you're invalid. What I do believe is that if you're trying to use your identity to shame other people into your own way, that's when your cause and your reason becomes invalid. Now, I can understand, I'll give Onision that. Not a lot of people want to go through the whole entire process of transitioning into either male or female. With that processes, it does come with a lot of altering risks that are intentionally permanent. A lot of people who are that early into the game may wait a little bit to determine whether or not their feelings are valid before making the leap. And while a lot of people say they don't have any regrets, there are some instances, like Caitlyn Jenner, for example, who pretty much, regret transitioning as to either male or female. That I can understand. But the problem is with transgenders is pretty much on our end, or at least, the trans community end, they invalidate the real transgender people, and it seems like they're undermining the transgender people's struggles. Because a lot of the rights and stuff that, the transgenders have were fought by the people who were long before. Like, up until, the sexual revolution, transgenderism was seen as a mental illness. After that, their forefathers or their foremothers, for example, fought for the rights to be accepted as an equal member of society. Which is it? Which is it, Onision? Is it transitioning or mutilation? Because a lot of transgender people, they don't see hacking off their penis or their vagina and creating into something else as mutilation. I mean, this is kind of... I'm sorry. This seems kind of like a backhanded compliment. This guy is telling us, on one hand, don't judge trenders. But on the other hand, he sees that, sexual reassignment surgery as mutilation. How can it be mutilation if a person is deciding to transition to the sex that they believe they are? Moving along. What about trans people who shame lesbians and trying to get them to date them because they don't necessarily believe that trans people are inherently female? What about the fact that there was this one guy whinging? I'm sorry, I forgot to use the correct pronouns. This one woman whinging at the fact that women won't date her because she identifies as female, but she hasn't gone through the process of transitioning as a male. Lesbians, gays, and straights, they have, like, their own sort of preferences. And there's nothing wrong with having a preference. So until, the trans trenders stop saying, well, you're a bigot if you don't date me if I don't happen to chop off my dick, versus, actually treating lesbians as part of a community, until that stops, I don't see any problem with pointing the finger at transgenders. Moving along. That isn't the most disgusting aspect of the LGBTQ community. Nope, we got people trying to pause neg holes in the gay male community. We got transgendered women shaming lesbians into dating them because apparently it's bigoted if you don't like girls with penises. We got a lot of shit going on in the LGBTQ community. So, I think if anything, in the grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily the worst thing I've heard. Move along. Just like transgenders literally bully people into dating people they have no preferences for. Onision, are you going to cover that, or am I just going to hear more virtue signaling after you mention transitioning into one sex or another is complete and total mutilation? Which is it? Is trans being okay, or is the fact that they want to lop off their dicks the mental illness? Your standards of garbage is so fucking low that I don't even care if I'm considered a garbage human being. Oh yes, I heard about the video. About the only positive impact I have is pretty much, you believe that chopping off your dick or cutting your pussy out to identify as a male or a female is genital mutilation, not necessarily an act trying to literally go ahead and identify as the gender that you agree with. And why should I take your argument seriously? You believe anything like that modifies the body is mutilation in itself. This guy literally has a hard-on for Blair White. I'm sorry. He probably faps her at night. I'm sorry, but I've rarely seen a trans-trender be tolerant. then transgender people should be acting the way that they do if there's transgenders. I'm sorry. I don't care. They could cry on Tumblr. So, is it okay to be trans, Onision, or is it not okay to be trans? Because the problem is, while you're saying it's not okay for a transgender people to be intolerant, you're now telling us that cutting yourself to identify as the gender that you want to be is not okay. Are you trying to say, unless it's underneath duress, then it's not okay? Or are you saying it's in general? You're saying two different things. How can we understand? Coming from the guy who literally harassed a girl for getting a boob job. Okay, this video went on too long. Fuck, what did I listen to anyway? So the whole gist of it, he believes transition surgery is just, stupid. Period. And why should anyone seek validation in others? I mean, at first you should learn to love yourself before you can have anyone else love you. Why do these transgender people even need the validation of others? If they inherently believe that's the sex they are, whatever third wheel party, gender, whatever the fuck they are, then it shouldn't matter what other people think. All I got is just, man, Onision's warped, and I'm really sorry for picking the low-hanging fruit, but it's obvious this guy has a hard-on for Brilliant White. Well, this is my first video on YouTube, and I got a feeling I'm picking the low-hanging fruit. You have a wonderful day. I'll upload more when I'm bored.